Grim Griz, welcome to the channel.
Thank you.
You are a mythical figure in my perception, and so I'm not even sure you are fully real because the encounters that I've had with you have been symbolic to say the least, in terms of the content that I've watched on your show, the tweets that I read. I'm trying to decipher them. I know Paul, he's a big fan of yours, and I'm just today here trying to understand who you are and what's important to you and what you're thinking about. So I'd like to just start with as much as you want to an introduction to yourself, and you can lead that wherever you want. I want to leave that fully to you. So please take it away.
Okay. All right. Hello. I
Hello
see
there.
the assassins have failed. Card for the show is going to be the six of clubs, it seems, from the
Beautiful.
red church deck. Um, Identity is contextual, and there's, especially for those with mental disorders related to how they think about themselves. The internet offered a place for you to be yourself that wasn't limited by your hindrances of what you thought about yourself.
Mm.
And at some point, that manifested as like on the internet, I'm Grim Griz. And out here, and when I have to be somebody, I have to be my legal fiction. That's fine. But um, there's, and I don't know. There's, I think that we've been steered in a direction and being trained to be audience and passive observers, and that we're in a brand new world where, like, over the last few years, we were in the brand new world where everyone's a TV station now, and now we're into I mean, the things that you're going to be able to get the AI to do for you without knowing how to do
Yeah.
is the means of production are in our hands in a way that has never been historically. So, and I'm to the extent I can find people that can see that and are willing to play in this digital creative space, a new game, like what you do when you're not. If you're going to be sitting in front of a screen anyway,
Yeah.
that play with the others that are there instead of just eating, absorbing it all is kind of the operating motif of what I'm doing on YouTube.
Yeah, that makes sense. I I think that the opportunity to play itself is so unique in this time, and like you say, we were all observers to a degree before. But I think now, for me at least, I'm at a spot where, okay, the opportunity is there. I'm trying to grab it. But then also there's this whole new craft that you're learning of. Okay, what do you do with that play? What are we actually trying to accomplish? What are we trying to move toward? Do you have some idea of for yourself what that is? What are you trying to learn or to experience?
I don't know. Um, it's there's so much of everything that I don't think anybody can process it alone. And so, trying to create and maintain and be a place where everybody can process like the way more inputs than we have because we can process them together as like a small world network, like John Vervaeke says.
Mm,
Um, and then because we're coming together in a small world network, we can have like insights that like level up all of our game. And uh, that's the theory. And so, or the practice and the embodiment of it is It's what I'm learning, I guess.
Mhm. When did you start practicing and not just listening?
Once upon a time, uh, Jordan Peterson was doing his Bible series, and I don't know, whatever the Abraham fella won. And I was in this house at the time, having crash landed my life after some interesting twists and turns. And so he's preaching the Abraham story, and a former community college roommate in Portland, Oregon, calls me up and says, "Hey, I got a room." And you always said if I ever had a room to call you. And so I go up there and I'm living that way for a minute. It's like, one house with basically three family units, like two singles and a couple. Um, and my days are well open. Uh, there's a lot of YouTube consumption, and I took my job at the time, which was medical transcriptionist. So I had like to type for 2 hours a day to maintain the rest of the life. And I was working on the carnivore thing, and and fasting both, I think. Well, no, the fasting came after a bit. So this, I come across this dude doing a show on Twitch, I think, or maybe I caught his YouTube. But yeah, okay. So I caught his YouTube and then went to his Twitch. Um, and he's got a cat tree behind him, and he's basically playing an autistic guy on the internet, finding the truth for you. Um, and this cat named Isaac Cappy, some B celebrity fella, be apparently Paris Hilton, not Paris, Michael Jackson's that clique. He comes out and says all of Hollywood's pedophile, man. Like when Seth Green says chicken, he don't mean chicken. And then, but he crashed out at Comic-Con saying all this stuff. Um, and he goes on this guy's show like before that guy goes on Alex Jones. So like, it looked like this dude had scooped uh, Alex Jones on some conspiracy. But at the end of the thing, dude's like, there's a lot of satanic ritual abuse of children going on. Let's get the truth out there. Come out with your survivor stories. And they tried to launch a hashtag off of it. And I'm like, that is insane. The last thing you want is people who are involved in this stuff making a public scene. And so I followed. And then the next dude that came on was supposedly somebody with the story. And it ties into and his story was that they're in Portland where I was. The naughty people were using the old Shanghai tunnels under Voodoo Donuts to move like bands and parties, and those parties involved children being drugged with and ritualistically abused. Right there in Portland, where I was, under the Voodoo Donuts that everybody loves. That place with the baby coffins. The place with the baby, but no, it's in a secular materialist world. All of this means nothing.
Oh,
All of this means nothing. So this there where I'm at, and I'm sitting there spending my days watching Rogan, sitting on the back porch and playing video games. It's like, okay, I'm playing Overwatch and they're doing horrible stuff right under me. This is kind of weird. And because my brain works like my brain works, like the way the host was covering it didn't look at all the sufficient angles and such. And I was pestering him so much in his chat, he encouraged me to make my own show. And so I did over on the YouTubes. And then I ended up interviewing that Isaac Cappy fellow, because like somehow his phone number leaked at the time, and so it was out there, and they, someone said like I did my show talking about this stuff, and somebody in the comments was like, "You should just call him." It's I don't know if you're familiar. There was this terrible like we can't talk about it on YouTube thing over in Washington D.C. involving a restaurant of Italian
Yeah.
food,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
table tennis.
Yeah.
And the dude who came out's claim was that those people had moved to Portland after that scene exploded. And let's see, where were we? Oh yeah, so I had that. I ended up having that Isaac Cappy fella on the phone, right? And the weird thing was, he was going on all these shows, and like on this one show he had gone on with a guy who looks like so much like a Fed, and like a different fella than the show I had been drawn in by. But it's like there was the thing that's it's sort of how why I was able to see the TLC as the TLC before most people is because I had come out of this thing where there's like these groups of
Yeah.
channels
Yeah. 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 I
where like
see.
several people are all watching the same channels. And if you see and the connections the audience or the hive mind makes with each other is a thing.
Mm.
And I had found out that that thing had manifested on discords and stuff was like the sort of the community glue for those channels. And like, so that mapped to me when I get over into this Peterson sphere with, you know, there's Rebecca Pajot and all the derivative channels like Sevilla and Burn, and everybody's got channels and they're also in the hive minds of these channels with us. So that's how that mapped. But so I get this guy, I do this interview, and then you know, we're talking satanic ritual abuse and whatnot. Oh no, I didn't make the connection. Hold on. So that Italian food thing, right? He goes on this guy's show, obvious, a glowing show, and he says like something to the guy, like, you know how I can trust you, and then he references that place, and then later he's like has a slice of Italian food delivered to him, and he takes a bite of it on the show, right
Oh,
when the host says something else, right? And I'm in this community of all these conspiracy minded people, and nobody else will see that, right? I'm like, look at this, and then my grandma has a bad bowl of chili at bingo and falls down the stairs here in Oklahoma, and so it behooved me to leave Portland and come be here for that.
I see.
And it happened like so immediately after uh, the having homeboy on my YouTube channel that it bothered me a little bit. But and it turns out the rent I was paying, right? I ended up coming back here like the first weekend of the month, so they return what's left of the month's rent when at some later date, whatever they call that. Um, they reimbursed me for what the rest of the month, and that amount of dollars was the number of the beast. So there was that connection too, made it fun,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Yeah.
and then my grandma ended up passing, but I had become like I had seen that stuff with the community behind the channels and stuff.
Yeah.
And so when I came across uh anyway, that's enough background for now, right? You should talk some.
No, please, please. I'm in it. I'm in the story. You got it. I'm still there.
So let's see what happened. I decided to like not be a truth or conspiracy guy anymore.
Why not?
Um there was an emergence of a weird channel, and he eventually ran a clip of some guy pitching his services as a disruptive innovator. And it was basically like the dude, I don't know, it looked like like it was a dude who had a channel, right? And it looked like an audition tape
Yeah.
to be what he became.
Yes. Yes.
And that I was like, all right, this is too. And this was before YouTube was even harsh on like taking stuff down, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, I understand.
Like that comes in later, but so this is just beforehand. This is like way too fetty for me. And um but so I'm still watching, I'm still eating YouTube all the time. And then I'm still following Peterson, sort of. Oh wait, no, there was the Owen Benjamin tangent. That's what it was.
Yeah.
He filled the gap for a while because he started doing a show from Washington State, and it landed about 10 a.m. my time
Hmm.
every day.
Yeah.
And so I picked up a lot of the value of doing a daily show from that, right? And he portrayed this person who had touched Hollywood, dated with like he dated Wednesday from the Adams Family or whatever,
Yeah.
um, leaving Hollywood and going through the conspiracy stuff. Like he did the flat Earth phase
Yep.
and all this other stuff in the Babylonian squares.
What is a
And then
Babylonian square?
dollar bills,
Okay.
Babylonian debt squares, right?
Okay.
Um, and it was funny. It was funny watching him because he was saying all sorts of stuff they wouldn't let you say on YouTube. I think by then they had taken Alex Jones out.
Yeah.
And I was like, first they come for Alex Jones and nobody can say anything anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and they don't take him down until he says that like the people who own Google, that their grandparents were Bolsheviks,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
then all of a sudden his YouTube channel finally goes down after all this he'd been talking.
Yeah.
That's the thing that did it. And then they like still charged his channel memberships for like the next 3 months because like I don't think they were planning on taking him down.
Yeah.
But and then he moved over to this weird cryptocurrency platform called D Live.
Okay.
It's like Twitch, but they had crypto
Encrypted.
involved. So
Yeah.
like as a host, I could you could give me lemons. You couldn't give me any money,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
buy the lemons, then you give me the lemons, and I get a magic box that lets me open the magic box, give some of the lemons you've given me
Yeah.
back to the audience so that they get involved in having lemons. And so that's what my Lemon Land experience. There's a couple of you go far enough back on the live streams. There's still a couple of crossover episodes where I did like from like you can do stream to two places at once.
Hmm.
So there's a couple of those on the channel still. And then so the all the Peterson, it was the Peterson donut phase
White
because
donut.
like there's this guy who everybody's eating his content and then he disappears. So
Okay.
what's
Yes. This is where Peugeot comes in. I get it.
yeah,
Okay.
so this is
Oh,
the
it's it.
donut is this the gaping hole of the volcano around it, and that's like Vervaeke and
Yeah.
Vanda,
Yeah.
and but like then there was the he was so hot and there was so much demand for him and his derivative channels that like there was this whole
Yeah.
ecosystem of them.
Okay.
Like some have faded in the way and some have moved on to other things, and but that was happening. And so that's and I latched on to the one where the guy gave it to two people
Hmm.
because there was the dude who got to talk to Peterson from the Sorting Myself Out channel, which he had originally his story got to be that he had originally come on to make fun of Jordan Peterson, and that's why the channel name was originally and still by URL Borden J Peterson or Borden B. Anyway, some derivative mocking his name is still like the channel name. but it goes sorting myself out, and he's like faking he's getting fat and then filming himself getting thin, and like it's all like bullshit lies. But he ends up getting a talk with Peterson, and where he gets to be the poster child for like uh watching too much porn, and then getting his life changed by Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
That's his shtick. And he ended up, and which, by the way, he at one point said he got that talk with Peterson by sigil magic.
By what?
Sigil magic.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Okay,
And so
what?
I like I had cottoned on to stuff like that because I have the you took a bite of Italian food eye
Yes.
shit happening on screen. And so he had a character on called Mercury Black, who had was diagnosed bipolar, and the story was had managed to manage it.
Hmm.
And so like that was his selling point. It's like, you got bipolar, I've managed. Here's how I manage.
Yeah.
You learn from that.
Yeah.
Um, so the poster boy for the porn thing
Hmm.
drops hands off his channel to Mercury Black and this little redhead kid who's pitching Gestalt therapy, who had like done the sound for a Ken Wilber video. And so it's like he seemed to be a recent graduate of a bunch of popular enough psychologists to have like those people were willing to talk to him on the show.
Hmm.
That was enough to help. He brought that to the channel. And then him and the other Yahoo had been handed a YouTube channel with like undue amount of subscribers, because it was part of the Peterson donut.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. The other
And so
guy.
I fell in with them since they didn't know what the hell they were doing. And I'm like, you guys should have a Discord, because I knew
Oh.
all that from the conspiracy stuff.
Yes.
And then the little redhead leaves the channel, and a bunch of us come together and try and make a like, okay, like what's a like if the person if the talent of the channel is too incompetent to run the channel, what needs to be in the background? We got a guy trying to be an accountant, and that's when the famous Tyler from the corner
Yes. Okay.
actively doing a channel and stuff. And became involved. Um, eventually, I it came to the like after the redhead left, um, bipolar fellow wanted to do a down season, and I was making stuff for the channel, like sort of Doomerish.
Yeah.
Um, I made a couple of them. Some of them they wouldn't. There's a lost one where Jamie Wheel explains the keys to the universe and welcomes you to the Illuminati. Oh, that was a beauty from a Rebel Wisdom one. Like he did a shtick on Rebel Wisdom, and I sliced it together so pretty.
Beautiful.
It, anyway, but we he ended up not liking the direction I wanted to go, and so we parted ways, and that's pretty much when I started my actual YouTube efforts.
Okay. So when do you start becoming a part of this little corner, or was that kind of at the root of it, what you're describing now with Tyler and
Mm,
all of this? Because I haven't heard Paul, for example, in this story.
well, the part where I guess where Paul comes in is I left that channel probably December. But like as a representative of that channel, I got the randos with Paul.
Ah, okay. Okay, yes.
So that's when I started existing. But it didn't really turn into a thing until later when Paul was having his crush on Chris Williamson.
Yeah.
And I was like, but you guys aren't even thinking about the shadow matriarchy. And I don't know, because I had been pretty heavy trolling
Yeah.
uh, up until that point, and it felt like they had gotten together and be like, "All right, Paul, deal with this guy. He's bothering us." And and he was like, instead of dealing with me that way, he like gave me the bump of his attention. he acknowledged that I had made a point, and that uh, it established a dynamic between, like, established the PVK bump the way Colbert has a bump as a thing.
Yeah.
And by then, Sevilla had already called it this little corner, and so he harnessed my trolling powers to the benefit of the community,
Yeah.
and that's that's how it. Yeah, but they had at the time the Bridge of the Meaning Q&As were an every week thing. He had Benjamin Boyce like guest star one, much to my very upset about that. But I like had one of my like I was like just regularly trolling him as a pastor with at the Q&As with like because when back then Christianity was very Ned Flanders.
Yeah.
We've come a long way. We've come a long way.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. And so is this like 3 years ago? What am I thinking for timeline? Did 4 years?
Like the whole course of that.
Well, the let's say Paul, like encountering Paul is that because I'm
Well, I'm
losing.
on Lockgate year 5,
Yeah.
so I don't know how much of it's been at least that long
Yeah.
since. I
That's
don't. I think that was like post. I think year 1 was post the first randos talk with Paul,
okay.
and then that's been 5 years probably.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. And I know that you've participated in one of the real life, let's say conferences. I don't know, multiple. Is that true? Like which ones
I've
or
been
which
sent
one?
to a lot of things. I've
Okay.
been, I think, to 4 at least. Uh, and the first one was Chino, which was interesting because Van Donk decided to like. I'm like, how are you gonna let the poor people guys go to this? And you're gonna have a camping option? And Van Donk was like, all right, you're in charge of the camping option. So and that was it. It was great. And then I got sent to Chad's Denim Dinner.
Yeah.
It was like a single estuary, but with ribs. And then I count the Pajot World Tour 2024 is one of them. And then the Pacific Northwest Estuary,
All
most
right.
recent.
Can you tell me more about Chino? Because that's kind of where that's the moment when that conference was being held that I started to participate in conversations, I guess. So I know a bit about it. I know Taiwan at the time and I think Karen as well. And so tell me about that first, let's say, embodied encounter for you.
Well, I got to point out Thunder Bay happened first.
Okay.
And like, so there was this, for those that couldn't make Thunder Bay vibe
I see.
going into the Chino thing already, because this was the second one. And so it seemed like, I don't know, the first one was great, but, and they had done paintball for Jesus in the first one, which was important. Um,
This was important.
it's, that's serious business. I think. I don't know. I'll take it to my grave. Rick Walker said once in a Vanderclay chat that he'd take care of it, but there's so many youth lost to video games, and churches are emptying, dying. Um, if you make church a way that poor kids get to play paintball,
Yeah.
everybody wins.
Yeah.
Uh, and so that they had at least a nod to that at the first event was important. And then we did it also. I think Chino was the last time it was done, but it's on the schedule for Midwestuary this August. But like, we got to lock in the funding for that, or it's not going to happen. I think at the moment, this is January, the end of January. This recording's happening. So, but so there was a lot of, I don't know. Chino felt bigger for some reason. I
Mm,
think maybe it was the Van Donk instead of an outsider thing, or that they were doing it in a CRC church. There was, I don't know, there was a lot. Chino was big.
mm.
And part of that, I think, at least for me, of course, was the campground thing. Like, I don't know how the hotel, I heard there was a hot tub version of a special Chino experience. But like for me, it's like if you weren't at the campground, you missed half a Chino.
Mm.
It was, I don't know, something special.
Was it a big campground? Like how many people are we talking at the camp?
Like most campsites have group sites, and it was just a single group site.
I see.
I think we had like 7, 8 man tents and ended up with like 20 people sleeping there. But uh, unlike other or in that instance, we had it was easy enough for just anybody in the area during the event to come by after the daily presentations. So it was like uh, I don't know, an after dinner party
Yeah.
around the campfire. It was great. And
Yeah,
people
it's
came and
important.
went all until up until like 10, 11 o'clock.
I see. Did you grow up going to church?
No,
Did you grow up? No, no, you didn't.
that was not my Sundays. I grew up in front of a television.
I see. Yeah. And that was it also video games at that time or no? Not
Video
really.
games at the time I'm thinking were like Donkey Kong,
Yeah.
Fifth Atari. Yeah,
Yeah.
those were there. The video games didn't get severe until Nintendo. Like
Yeah. I guess that's
six.
true.
Then it became a thing.
And
Early childhood. No.
mm, you said you
Was
you grew up in Oklahoma, is it?
no, I haven't. I came of age in Oklahoma, like eighth grade and after.
Ah.
Um, Single parent mom went
Hmm.
in the Air Force, active duty, and I don't know if it was bullshit or they just made it easier sense, but since she was active duty and could be called to war, somebody else had to be my legal guardian, and so she dropped me off with my grandma and would like come in once a month to visit. And my grandma lived next to my great grandfather, and it was 2 blocks from a lake. So like I would get to go fishing with my great grandpa and stuff. So I had a blessed childhood. Um, Seeing how since then I've never been in an environment where so many people knew their neighbors. I think something got lost since then, but it's hard to put your finger on.
Yeah.
It might, and church people might not have lost it. Like that might have held it together for people. I think in the secular world, there's a lot less. Would you be my neighbor than there used to be?
Yeah, I guess that's true. You tweeted out the other day, asked how many people you know on the street or something like that. You said like less than half, half, or more than half, or and yeah. When I read that, I have this longing as well for that. I have a church close to me, um, and I saw the the way people care for each other, even if some of it is kind of posturing. I just think it's I
It's
there.
nice to have posture when the posturing is caring for people.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's worse things to posture as, and there's real, I don't know, sacrifice there and commitment to people. And yeah, this connectedness, I feel, I don't know, it's important to know the people in your street, I guess. But at the same time, we have this internet thing going on and the virtually not alone. Is there a way you try to balance that for yourself?
No, no, I don't. I see the same faces at the Brahms where I get my morning biscuit. I know one neighbor. House on the other side is empty. Uh, I know the guy directly across the street. Nobody else on the street except uh, one of the ladies happens to be the customer service one at Walmart, so I know her too.
I
I
see.
know like maybe four out of 12 to 16 potential neighbors.
Yeah. Well,
But
to be
like,
fair, that's a reasonable number to achieve. I mean, I was telling you, I have a long street, so it's like, it's endless. It's probably like hundreds or more. Um, but I
but
guess,
like go out on your porch and just like do the scan. What
yeah.
percent of those people do you know? Like, do you know their names even? Like,
Well, the thing is, you're
would you,
asking me, right?
no, I'm just it's just that's the question.
Yeah,
Ask themselves, you know.
yeah. And I think that also really depends. Like, I live in yeah, it's a city. It's kind of a, let's say, a neighborhood. So it could be a village for Dutch standards, but we are so densely populated that it's just, I mean, physically below me there's people living, and then physically further below me there's an whole other family living, and then 2 meters from me, like just right there, that wall you see right there on the other side, there's someone watching TV probably. Never seen their face. And then we go the other side, and then I'm looking right now out, and there's lights left to right and gardens all in front of me, and it's just everyone's coming back from work, and they're all people who
Like,
do their life, and then they come back, and then maybe they go do some sports, and then they have their own life, and that's
are
just,
they even living the friend's dream where like they know the people in the apartment across the hall?
yeah.
Live
Yeah,
that community.
yeah. And I mean, I got sick at the start of the year, and I started to get really into survival shows. People that, like, they build a shelter together, and they kind of, they're just by the fire most of the day trying to survive in Alaska. I don't know why I wanted to watch all those things, but it did make me think. And there's just this spot, this this beautiful spot where you would just go outside, and you would help your neighbor with something, and you would, I guess, be in constant relationship to the people around you. And I think that's a beautiful thing to move toward. I'm not sure that it's feasible for me in my life, but at least acknowledge that it's important. That's Yeah, that's a discovery that somehow myself and many other people only make later in life, and then even then they're like, oh, that's completely unrealistic, so I'm never going to be able to do that, so why even bother trying? But there's a real potential there that perhaps we should tap into.
I
And
like camping for it.
yeah,
I'm excited that this once it thaws, we're gonna try and do some like your local national park campground. We're gonna do an estuary weekend,
that's
um,
awesome.
and we're gonna if it launches, it'll be great because it'll be the first one where the notion is we're gonna get 3 group campsites, and like so people can have their kids in the outside ones, and then we'll do the estuary thing in the middle one. And it's just that's it. It's like sitting around a campfire with folks.
Yeah,
That's for billions. That's built in, and that's what being in front of a screen does. But like to actually do what as it was meant to, that's something. I think it breaks that. I think that helps with that. It's like you don't know what you were missing until you get it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, we're meant to. That's something odd, isn't it, to say that? Like, I've been pondering that a lot, to do natural things, for example, to live as we're supposed to, but in a way we kind of broke free. And I mean, say, go back into history at some point, humans become, let's say, unnatural. But what
right.
what does that mean? Like, what does it mean? What are we deviating from when we become unnatural? Why is
We
this unnatural? What
nature. We betrayed nature and decided we were going to conquer it.
Guess so.
It's like people eat so much stuff that they wouldn't feed their dog because
Yeah.
they recognize their dog is an animal and for them because they're so divorced from how much they're an animal, you know.
That's true. Yeah, that's a way of thinking about it. And I guess me watching, so I was watching this guy, he's doing like survival show and he's going through different tribes and he kind of treks through the wilderness and then he reaches the tribes and then you just see how they interact and they have such tremendous respect for nature, but a kind of respect, this fear type of based respect where, you
Like
know,
there might be a rattler in there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's constant danger looming, but they're completely aware of also the goodness of it, and then they're completely aware of how sacred it is. And um, I don't know, when you ask them the big questions, we're always talking about big questions here, right? Like what is the meaning of life and what's the most important thing? They'll just say, eating meat and when you get to hunt and it's people look at that and think, oh, that's so simple, but actually that's so profound because they have their entire arena in front of them and everything is connected and it's grounded, rooted, and at the same time the meaning is it's so real. Whereas here there's a possibility to indeed, like you say, like you sit behind a computer for hours and then all of a sudden you have food on your plate. Like what is that about? Like how does that magical, like I wonder if a person from um 200,000 years ago looks at that and it's like, how does that work? What did he put in that thing so that the food comes out? And so
How much of his soul did he have to put into
yeah,
that food?
yeah, that dude probably walks by, looks at us, and is like, no, not doing this, and just probably finds the nearest forest or whatever and goes over there, I think.
That's part of why I like to pick on Christians about fasting,
Tell me
because
about that.
there's a line in there where Jesus says, "When ye fast," which means you're supposed to. Um, and so few of like up until 5 years ago, I had no idea what I was like when I was hungry. Never even met that guy, and it's just more the disembodiment, right? Constantly sated, constantly. So, but yeah.
So you've been fasting, have you fasted a lot?
No, no. I was very impressed with myself when I managed. It's like I did 2.5 days. And the last time I seriously tried was probably 3 years ago.
What made you stop?
I put too much hope on the outcome.
Hmm,
I put too much, it's too big of a deal.
I understand.
I said deja vu. That's fun.
What is the deja vu? Is it about the fasting or something completely else?
That when I get deja vu, it's the moment I'm in, I recognize it. Like I dreamt it once, or
Yeah. So that was the moment. I think there's a lot of what you're saying, caring too much about the outcome with specifically fasting or doing certain rituals. I think we've lost the sense of just showing up and being okay, whatever happens. This famous line of these monks that are like, well, if you get I don't know if it's monks or they're spiritual teachers of some kind. I don't know where I heard it, but if you're meditating, you get this crazy experience, you should ignore it, type of thing.
it's
I,
bait.
yeah, I like that so much because I kind of stake my whole life philosophy on an experience like that. And it kind of gives me freedom to think that, whether or not I have those experiences doesn't mean I'm less or more valuable as a person or I'm um yeah, is more or less connected to God in a sense. I think a lot of it has to do with, like you say, how how much food you're eating and how your systems are working. Because I think a lot of these types of things that we can see that are absolutely extraordinary are influenced by just not being satiated or hydrated or having your brain almost completely deactivated. And then you just remove something that's usually on, like in a car, if you remove a part. And
For a while, I was operating under the notion that I got to be a special me when everything was satiated. When all the little beasts were fed,
yeah,
then I got this freedom of operation. So that's from where I tried to stream. Um, the thing, like the Jesus guy,
this guy.
my as coming from not being raised in it, you identify obviously with the doubter, and then you find out he's got this Gnostic gospel where apparently Christ says things that other people don't write down, and one of those is my favorite is, and it's blessed is the man who consumes the lion, for the lion becomes a man, and cursed is the man whom the lion consumes.
Oh,
The lion becomes a man. Um, and it that's when it comes to things like consuming and being consumed. Uh,
so what is that? What does it mean? I don't understand it.
uh, you find out when you fast,
Mm,
and because that's you and the lion.
yeah.
Your body is going to say, "Eat, eat, eat," and it's going to, and that's you and the lion. And it's, I think of every vice you can have. It's because it's the, and I don't know. That's so that one sticks to me. And then another one of my favorites is get the money lenders out of your temple because this is your temple. And so like those are fun ones.
That's cool. Yeah.
But it's like oh like I've granted myself permission to be able to see and say the things so long as I don't do them myself.
Mhm.
Um, I've been operating at that level for a while.
How's that?
I think I think now that I think about it, I haven't tried to fast since my grandma got sick. I've thought about it and whatever, but I haven't actually made an attempt since then.
Yeah, that makes some sense to me. Don't know why, but it seems intuitive to not. Is she still sick or is she still with you or is she passed?
Uh, she died. They ended up giving her colostomy, and she didn't have it in her to get well. With
Mhm.
that caveat, she wouldn't fight. So
And this is your grandmother that raised you?
yeah,
Was she more like a mother to you in experience?
I wouldn't have a comparison. Uh, she, the, I never developed the see. I never really bonded with my actual mother. To the extent I did, it was probably with my grandma.
I see. Yeah, I lost my
So it took a while.
no, it's all good. I lost basically all my grandparents that I had in the last 2 years or so. And I wasn't close to them like they raised me or anything. But it was definitely for a lot of us the first loss, and then it was another and another, and it's kind of shifted a lot in our family in terms of an understanding of death. A real like you hear about death, you everyone knows about death, but if you grow up and you're relatively well off as a family and people are healthy and maybe you lose a hamster or a guinea pig or at worst a horse. Um, That's one thing, but even with your grandparents, you know it's kind of coming, and it's always like, yeah, your grandparents like they're not going to be around for much longer. But then when it kind of happened, I think for a lot of us, it was just a wake up call, but I think it made death close and very real. And I'm surprised with the positive effect it had on a lot of like my siblings and how they cared about family. And I've thought a lot about death on this channel and spoken a lot about it and asked what people think about it. And I guess, yeah, I'm wondering for you, what is your relationship to death if anything pops up?
Well, uh, 9 months ago, somebody that was living with me died in the house. So I have a very close relationship with death recently.
I'm sorry.
Uh, it's like the virginity.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Especially if it's unexpected, I guess.
That's a whole special ride,
Yeah.
not for everybody.
Oh. Is this house that you're in right now?
Yeah.
Do you think there's something that stays after like in a location?
Mm.
Do you think about that?
Only when I'm buying a house.
Ah, I see. Want to know?
Yeah. No, uh, I don't rule out psychic imprints tied to geography, like old asylums, Indian graveyards, all that stuff, man. I mean, yes, things can leave an imprint. I don't know that they all do, but they can. They certainly can.
Yeah, I think I kind of grew up with this, straw man perspective of, you know, it's ridiculous to believe in ghosts. And then I remember I had this one teacher. I was like 10 years old, and she was so adamant. She was like upset with anyone that would make fun of that because she would just wake up and people would touch her, her ankles and stuff like that. Um, and I don't know. Now I'm not ruling anything out anymore these days, but I've been thinking a lot about it. I know for sure that I just noticed if I would go to for example, Egypt, and I would just visit these places, and I know it from a lot of people, but I think it would be true for me as well. You just feel something. There's something still there, and I think especially if you know someone and have known someone, and then you spend time in this space where they've spent time a lot. I mean, that doesn't take a lot of belief or faith or whatever to still feel a presence to the degree that you don't speak about someone as in the past tense, but there's a presence of theirs still there. And whatever possibly they could experience, I don't know, but you feel it. I don't know what they if there's a day left experience. I've I've kind of given up on speculating about that too much. I'm trying to leave it in the open, but it just keeps coming back to me as a question of, yeah, what does happen? Are we going still in space time? What's going to happen?
I assume it was if we go back to whatever it was before we were born.
Yeah, like Ouroboros, the snake catching its tail or something.
The whole notion that I would have to be new and unique immortal soul. It's like if I'm an immortal, what's the point of being an immortal soul if you get like one ride? And then it's either I don't know, man. I don't know. None of that makes sense.
Are you afraid of the ride ending?
You can't be afraid of something you've been longing for your whole life.
Well, maybe you can. I'm not sure.
Huh?
I think
I'm sure I'll
long,
be terrified of the like moment, right? It's like, oh,
yeah,
this is what it feels like when your liver quits working. Because,
yeah, of course.
there's that. There's the terror of the edge of the feelings. But
But the unknown, it is the unknown. That's like, when you long for an adventure. Um, I long for adventure. I think everyone does. And death is in a way, it could be the greatest one of some sorts. It's the great unknown. Like it's the greatest unknown in the sense that we know the least.
uh, I get the sense that on the other side, we're going to find out how much of an adventure this it was.
This
And
was.
yeah,
How
like,
so?
it's like you've seen Schindler's List.
Yeah, no, I haven't.
All right, well, it's about Liam Neeson saving a bunch of Jews' lives, and then at some point in the movie, he's like, "Oh, if I only had given up this ring, I could have saved another whole life." Like that part. I think it's going to be like that, and except like we'll be looking back at our lives at all the opportunities for whatever that we passed on, just let go by. I think that's going to be a hard landing on the other side, but it's just my suspicion. And also as a result of the way I'm living my life, not doing those things that treasures in heaven, the ones you're supposed to be storing up.
Yeah, you're not storing? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not prioritizing it as a goal. I don't think.
I'm kind of surprised by that because I do feel like you have the great awareness of that and you have an immense insight into a lot of these questions. And clearly, you're extremely interested, theologically speaking and philosophically. And and yeah, to me, I feel like you are you are doing that. But of course, I don't know you well enough. But what I have seen has been, I don't know, storing things in heaven. But maybe I'm getting that wrong.
There's a lot of times when this camera's not on. So
Yeah, of course, I understand. This it's connected to this thing that Peterson said, right? Of he made the link between reputation, storing things in heaven, and I don't know, is it gold or something like that? He made a jump where I remember hearing it for the first time, and then I tried to explain it. I was like, wait, this doesn't make a lot of sense. But I know, yeah, it's like yeah, something like store things in heaven, not on earth, or something like that. I don't know if you remember the verse.
well, I think we got there because we were talking about death,
Yeah,
and when when you lose access to another soul that you've had access to in a fashion where you are certain, like beyond certain, that that was the end of that access, um, then what memories come back, either positive or negative, are they give you a sense of what treasures in heaven might be, right? Like,
yeah,
the one morning with the pancakes. It'd be cool if I got to do that again when I got to heaven. So maybe that's a treasure in heaven. So
yeah.
there's only the eternal now.
Hmm. So I watched the first time I watched your YouTube channel. I watched the video and I looked at the editing and I was trying to, when you're learning a new language, kind of, I mean, you know it because you watch like Twitch streams and there's a whole, there's particularities to everything. And there's, I don't know, I just took it as a great inspiration of some sorts of like, okay, it's a production. if you know what I mean. What do you I don't know. I just have so many questions about it. Like, where do all of those things?
Much.
Yeah, I want to understand the lore. Like, what is the yeah, what is the show? Can you just talk to me about what it is? What are you doing when you make these videos? And I'm talking specifically about well, what I watched. Very edited. I saw kind of also like a recap of things that you saw. Um, and then I saw a speaking about things where it attests like really deep understanding, but you spoke about it in such a light way that I was kind of like, oh, this is extremely different and refreshing. It piqued my interest. So maybe you can talk about your channel, your show.
Well, prior to the daily live streamings or near daily live streamings, intermittently daily live streamings, the clip collage work was just, I'd go through my day, and then at the end of it, like those pieces were shiny, and like that they had all come together. That there was that string. It wasn't just that I saw this one and that was cool, and I saw this one and that was cool. It was just how the pieces fit together was spoke to me, and like a lot of the clip collages are based on that. These it's not this thing or this thing, but look when they're together.
Yeah.
Um, but like the live stream is, I don't is, is sometimes it's that live, honestly,
Yeah.
and when it's those ones, I don't know. Like when I'm doing the clip collages, I already know. But when it happens live, it's just like, just look how it strings together in front of all of us.
Yeah. I mean, it's an art form of some sort. It's like you're talking about at the start that there's things happening in history that are just unprecedented and there's new mediums. Uh, this is definitely like one of them. It's completely uncharted territory. To me it's exciting because it offers art forms never seen before, and then people paving paths as to how we're going to do this. I think about podcasting in a similar way. I'm like, well, no one knows how to do this. Let's all just look at Joe Rogan, see what he does, and then any of people making really produced podcasts.
Well, it's like when like you can't underestimate the value of someone like Pet Cow or Demir, like those guys. They see the same value you do, and then they make it more valuable.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
That does a lot. That's
Yeah. It's special. I also think a lot of the stuff that I guess a lot of us are um, interested in and want to know more about and want to integrate. For a lot of people, it completely, they're maybe they would be interested in what it could offer them as integration, but the medium just doesn't work for them. Like I know a lot of people feel like this about Peterson, and I appreciate people trying to make that to package it in a different way so that kind of this wisdom is spread in some other way where maybe my sisters could watch it and not be turned off by the way this guy is so angry, screaming.
But if
And
somebody appreciates it, translates it into different sub dialects,
what do you mean by that?
like there's somebody who can take it and get what they get out of Peterson and then translate it into a way that people like your sister can hear it.
Yeah, I
That's
think
like,
that does happen.
to me, that's kind of like a sub dialect, cultural sub dialect or something.
Yeah,
That same angle.
I have two things that I really want to ask you about. One of them is, well, conspiracies are interesting, and I was interested in myself, and what underlies a lot of it is suspicion, I guess. You spoke a bit about suspicion. Do you still have a lot of that suspicion, or did you replace it with something else?
Well, let's get into that after I refill my coffee cup.
You refill your coffee cup. I'll get some water as well. Yeah. Suspicion.
Yeah, I think I'm always gonna think it's worse than most people think it is. I It just seems like it might be a spiritual war. The realities of that, when you really start to think about it, uh, it like raises the stakes. Like, what did he even mean by powers and principalities?
Yeah.
Uh, what did it mean? Like, if you're a Christian, right, or if you have faith in what's written in the Bible, there's that bit where the way, the truth, and the life goes out into the desert for 40 days, and the adversary offers him control, like, of the world. And um, if you pick it up after the crucifixion, it doesn't seem like whoever was controlling the world changed all that much.
Yeah.
Um, it seems like celebrities that have lost a loved one before doing really well aren't low in number. Oh, I don't know, man. It's You take off the mustard seed blanket of materialism and realize that there are other things. I don't think you get less suspicious.
I guess I understand, but at the same time, I think being aware is one thing of a lot of bad things happening. Perhaps conspiracies and
What do you mean?
the things that you mentioned before. But I think suspicion is it's a way of viewing the world, let's say. And I think it kind of feeds back into you. It kind of reflects on yourself in a sense. So when I'm looking at someone with suspicion, their behavior changes toward me. The way I get the information changes and the way I look at myself as well. And I think there's something about kind of faking it till you make it in the sense of, this faith, this existential faith in the goodness of the world, that it's really good. I don't know how much suspicion there's involved there. It's like, hey, the world you tell yourself, right? And I had a light flu the other day and I'm not used to that. And
Make sure your vitamin D levels are up to snuff, especially if you don't go outside much.
yeah, for sure. No, I take vitamin D, but but I hear the adversary, I hear the voices coming is like I almost start to become suspicious of myself when I was in that bad state of mind. And it wasn't even that bad. Like I have no idea what a bad state of mind is like. I've been very lucky in my life. But I also knew that there was some sort of falseness to it. You feel like you hear the snakes in the back and stuff like that. And they
Like
try
a fever dream.
yes, a lot of those. And and yeah, I guess suspicion brings out the snakes. That's what I'm trying to say. And so that's why, like, I think that you can get less suspicious if you get that perspective that you were talking about. And I felt it for myself. Like I was really interested in conspiracy theories for the longest time. For for the longest time. I'm a baby. I just got born. But like let's say 2, 3 years of my life that I was really interested in it. And then there was this I guess the more that my faith grew, the more that I kind of, you see, and you spoke about this, or Karen spoke about this when you spoke with her. She said something like the evil that is in the people that we're suspicious of, or in the conspiracy theories. Um, it's not them necessarily. It's like it's in us. It's in all of us. The spiritual war you're talking about. But at the same time, there's an antidote to it. There's a force greater than it. And I guess if you channel that force, then you don't need to be suspicious. You need to be like real with it. Like you need to conquer it. You need to in yourself, but you need to confront it with that. And it becomes a I don't know. I think when things are out on the table, it's a different war. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, I'm getting the vibe of like, okay, so it's a spiritual warfare and you're a sinner and like you're pretty comfortable. If you actually start playing for the other team, you're gonna have to deal with those consequences. Maybe you should just keep sinning. And I don't know that that's all related to what you were saying, but that's where my mind took it.
Yeah, I understand. I guess what I'm trying to say is that evil is real, but operating on a faith that reality as a whole is good can make that evil sort of a servant. That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say. And that I don't ever want to diminish suffering, or I don't want to diminish the true evil that is in this world. But at the same time, like if you really, really believe, then that evil it couldn't win. And it couldn't, you know, the world we can always say the world is doing so bad. I guess this is the sentiment that I really had. It's like, telling people around me, like, you don't see what I see. Like there's all these things going on. But then at the same time, here's my mom, for example, who, she she doesn't know about any of these things. She doesn't look at them. But what she does do is she acts with like this existential faith that is completely unparalleled, that just makes everything around her better, you know?
Right.
And she was one of those people that I was saying like, oh, don't you see this? Don't you see this? And I was ranting toward her. And at the same time, she's living it. And that's just kind of, for me, the turn that I wanted to make of like, hey, I can be suspicious all day, but it's kind of reflecting pretty bad on myself here. Like I'm turning into the person that I'm kind of ranting about. And so, um,
Well,
yeah,
one
I
of the
guess.
dangers of the whole conspiracy thing is until you see the astronaut. It's like you're like, oh my God, this is if this is true, somebody needs to know so that somebody does something about it.
Yeah, yeah,
And the thing about it is like once you've gone far enough down enough rabbit holes, you get the insight, and then there's the astronaut with the gun on your head. He says always has been. Like the fact that you found out that things are bad and horrible things are happening doesn't mean that nobody else knew. We all know, and kayfabe, it's not. Um, and that's the whole the dangerous part of the conspiracy phase when you want to make a bunch of noise about it and tell everybody and bring that darkness into their world because you think nobody knows.
yeah,
That's the broadcast suspicion problem, I think.
yeah. It's good. So
I
I'm
don't know.
very,
I just like to point to things though, and I think like, but that's to me, it's the whole defense against the dark arts angle. It's like they aren't teaching us in class, so we have to find that. And for me, part of this little corner of the internet has become the room of requirement. It's like in this world where these things are true.
Yeah.
What should you know?
Yeah.
How can you like? What do you need to know to protect yourself and those you love?
Yeah, I understand.
To that extent, it's required we look into the abyss a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious about your country. I haven't spoken to anyone about like America specifically, what's going on in your country, I but I'm thinking a lot about it and I'm looking a lot at it and kind of like being in Europe, you get so much information about it, let's say from different sources. And I guess what I'm seeing, and it's surreal to understand, is that kind of, I started listening to Joe Rogan, for example, 5 years ago or something. My brother said, if you listen to podcasts, this is the number one, right?
Right?
And and you follow all of that and these comedians and whatnot. And all of a sudden there's an inauguration happening and you see like Mark Zuckerberg, who was just on Joe, and you see Dana White, head of the UFC, and you see Elon Musk, who's on Twitter all day and at the same time does all these things, uh the rockets and the drills and like everything. And you're just like, huh, here are a bunch of people sitting and like in one of the biggest events in world history, and you've been kind of there through it, like if you watch some of the podcasts, right, and you've been following this journey quite a bit. And I just don't know what to make of it. Like, I really worry when people are really positive about it, like, oh yeah, we're winning or something. I'm like, well, I highly doubt that. Just because, there's some people in power that are familiar faces to you doesn't mean that everything that you were worried about before is fixed. But um, I guess I've been trying to make sense of it and trying to like collect my thoughts about all of it, because it kind of feels like some of your friends are in government, even though they no idea who you are, but you listen to a bunch of their stuff. I assume you probably have listened to quite some of these people. Um, yeah, what do you think about it? Where is all of this going, and how? I mean, I'm just putting out there how fascinating I find it, the role of podcasting and all of this. Like, you started it with that, right? The conversation. And I'm baffled by it from an outside perspective. And I could never see something like this happening in my country, for example. So yeah.
You're so what we went through between you know the 2020s, the year of hindsight. Um, there was there's been a lot of pushing toward you'll own nothing, you'll eat bugs.
Yeah.
That's they're doing that, and so everybody has been feeling the pressure of that, and it feels like not them has
Yeah.
won a battle. Like the team not eat bugs is on the upswing, and
Yeah.
everybody's very excited and happy about it. Uh, in 2022, Elon Musk went to the Met, I think, or somebody's gala Halloween party, dressed as the Devil's Champion, like it wore armor with a Baphomet head on his chest, and he kept that as his ex Twitter avatar for like 2.5 years. Um, I'm I'm not a whole Bible kind of guy. The words of Christ are good. I like those. The Gospels are nice. Maybe a little Acts, but that Book of Revelation thing, um, it, it, it feels as though like um, we're strumming right along in in a lot of ways in that thing. And I think some of these characters are involved in that. whatever AI is going to become, it's going to reshape humanity. Like I can type a prompt and get 3 hours worth of work, uh, and that's me using it poorly. And there's people who know what they're doing with it.
Yeah, it's insane.
Um, right now, I think it's at least on stage we're having the race of like who's going to get AGI first. And more than likely, this presentation of this race has been designed by the AGI to, so I don't know, man. As far as watching the politics of it, I'm just I'm suffering from the relief of the fact that the team that has abortions and vasectomies at their party event isn't the one in power anymore because it's so on the face anti-human.
Yeah.
That that doesn't I, there's that doesn't mean I think the good guys are in power. I just mean it's like I don't I'm not getting swept up in the golden age positivity.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, isn't there? It's really surprising to me. I've because I felt like there was a lot of pessimism um what I was hearing, just politically, like people were kind of retreating. And now they put the guy in and they're happy and they're like, let's build. And it's like, I feel like we're like in 2014 or something, like something really odd. I feel is going on and language that I haven't heard in 10 years that, that it's just, yeah, it feels, I don't know, it feels a bit surreal because I was like, let me just watch the speeches and whatnot.
It's been surreal,
Yeah.
right? Like people arguing that it's a good idea for that male child to have a surgery and stay on hormone pills for the rest of their life. That was normal. That was so
Yeah, it's
it's
all been surreal, I guess.
so it's like the turn away from that feels like a miracle, unfortunately, because they made it look like it was so bad. I
Yeah.
don't know. Um,
Yeah, it's like we're all kind of like sort of the hypnosis is kind of waning or whatever, and we're trying to see the world world again through normal eyes, but it's just trippy as hell now. Like you're not really grasping reality anymore. Um, but yeah, I was curious what you thought because I haven't spoken to anyone about it because it's not my country, but um it's present everywhere. I mean, people talk about all of it.
countries, man, really, really, because there's global corporations, right? Like
Yeah.
small island countries can't get Marlboros not to be sold there because they don't have the money to win those lawsuits. They're just a country.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know how much of countries is just the LARP we're still playing when the powers that be are operating on a
Yeah, it is.
completely different level.
Yeah, it is. It's also, I think the whole idea of a nation state is so temporary. I study ancient history, so you look at that and
The borders move a lot.
then,
Names change.
yeah, and flags and what, yeah, just the concept of the nation state is very young, and perhaps will get out of fashion at some point. And and I guess even just five, let's say 10 years ago, if I look back 10 years ago and I think, what would it look like today? There's just no way that I that you could have predicted it.
I'm there's the conspiracy guy in me is so relieved that they overplayed their hand so hard in the year of hindsight that I'm not alone anymore in my level of mistrust for what's going on. Like
Yeah.
everybody who was gonna noticed, and it's good. It's good that we can think together.
That's true. And I have the same, like that part of me is like, okay, thank God I don't have to, you know, think about this in silence. But at the same time, I'm like, well, if mistrust is, you know, the center now, where is that taking us? Mistrust in everything that was center is now center. What does that mean?
I think we're coming to grips with, like, I don't know, since 95, 99, the sense that everything was pretty much under control. You could just go to work and come home and everything will be fine. That's also being shattered with uh, the trust in those institutions. And so that's going to result in good, I think. That people have, I think the mistrust will return us to trusting each other
Ah,
instead of institutions.
yes. Okay.
And so there's hope in that.
There's hope in that. Yeah. I'm happy to hear you have hope. It's not a cheap thing to have. It's comes at a cost, I guess. Comes at a I don't know, I think it's a courageous thing. Hope.
Well, if there's a spiritual war going on, they didn't send me here for nothing.
They definitely did. Graham, I think you have a beautiful soul. Oh God.
Ah! See what happens.
I'm out.
All right.
I'm being cursed. I'm gonna go to my other camera. Wait. This is reality. No, it's gonna end it up because we're nearing the end of our time, but I was gonna say that um I like I like that you have hope. That I'm really happy to hear that in the end because I do feel like there's a part of what we spoke about that um could make it seem like he didn't. You know what I
Well,
mean?
on the good days, right? The darker it is, it's just a sign you need to shine brighter.
It's true. I
Good
hope
day.
I hope we can both do that. I mean, I've not been tested a lot, and I'm sure you have, and I hope I can have faith in the darker days too.
I trust the author. Um, Thanks for this. It was good to say a lot of that stuff. Good, like verbalize it, think it through. So
Yeah,
I
thank
appreciate
you,
this.
thank you so much. I will see you on the interwebs. It's a good one.